He says, I agree with the points you both made. Well said. However, I am curious. Do you think the apostles in the first century were, in fact, a sect of Judaism? Or on the other hand, were they just cherry picking Judaism? Now, I want to stop right here and give a little grace here to Peter. He's using the language that we used in the clip that he commented on. And in that clip, we said that Messianic Judaism is cherry picking, right? It's cherry picking from Judaism. They're not observing Judaism. They're observing what they want to from Judaism. So it's, he's using the word, and we're talking about the idea that there were different sects in the first century of Judaism, and we were talking about the different sects today of Judaism that disagree with each other. So he's using these terms, sect of Judaism, he's using the term cherry picking because we use those terms. So just to give grace here, accepting some. So back to Peter's comment. Let's back up just a little bit. Were they just cherry picking Judaism, accepting some teachings of the Pharisees while rejecting other teachings of the Pharisees to make it work with their quote new belief? Similar to Paul in his defense in the Sanhedrin, he pits the Pharisees, his sect, against the Sadducees, with beliefs that he also shares. However, if most of the Pharisees in the court knew the extent of his beliefs concerning the Messiah, they more than likely would have considered him a heretic and thus not a part of their sect or even of Judaism on a larger scale. What do you think? So that was the entire comment. Let's back up and we're going to throw this one over to Rob. He says, at the very beginning, he says, I am curious, do you think the apostles in the first century were in fact a sect of Judaism, or on the other hand, were they just cherry-picking Judaism? Let's talk about that. Rob?
I think, no, they weren't a sect. In terms of the biblical canon, if you look at the language, it's the Greek word from where we get heresy, is the word often translated as sect. If they're being
that's awesome,
called,
by the way. That's awesome, by the way. That the word sect comes from the same word for heresy. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, well, because it has to do with like opinion, right? It comes from the Greek word like an opinion or a way of life. But if you look at the use of that word, particularly in Acts, it's in the mouths of, it says the sect. An accuser is calling them a sect. And then I think Paul says, which they call a sect.
Now, let's stop for just a second, because I will say that it is in the past week that Rob changed my mind on this. Because when we were preparing for this show, I said, sure, I think Paul probably saw him in a sect of himself as a new sect of Judaism. And Rob said,
I don't think so. Oh, here, okay, I found it. So in Acts 24, this is just where I would say, in the accuser's mouth, we have found this man a real pest. They're talking about Paul, and a fellow who stirs up dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Okay, so this is propaganda, right? They're trying to make. Do we agree that he's a real pest? No.
Right.
Do we agree that he stirs up dissension? That's not his goal. He's preaching the truth, and then some believe, some don't. He's a ringleader? No. See,
right.
He even tried to, the next verse, 24 verse 6, he tried to desecrate the temple. Do we believe that? So, right, this is a false report about Paul to get him into trouble. And then in verse 24:13, Paul says, nor can they prove you the charges which they now accuse me. So in other words, I'm not that. And he says, but I admit to you, according to the way which they call a sect, I do serve the God of our fathers, believing everything is written in the law and is in the prophets, etc. So the only time he says he had lived as a Pharisee according to the strictest sect of our religion. But but that is just talking about him living as a Pharisee. He would say the Pharisees are a sect, but the way is not a sect.
So I think I'm trying to think of some of the things that you said the other day too, which is you said, well, he might have been in a sect, but now it's just about being in Christ. Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.